And I just need to like this. And spotlight. Add spotlight. Okay. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Good, good. Okay. So, oh, I know what I need to also. Need 2 seconds to just finish my setup, and then okay. So good evening, everyone. We're on 13, session 13 now already. Let me just turn off my phone. And, oh, this is. So we've been talking about the Shoshinge, which is the verse or song that's in the true teaching, practice and attainment of the Pure Land Way. A couple of you are here. Maybe Dana, were you here last time, or is this your first time?
This is my first time.
Okay. So did you get the material today, Dana? Did it?
I'm printing it out as you speak.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll bring it up on the screen anyway. So I'd like to begin with the recitation of the Nembutsu. So please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. And welcome also to Trish, who's here for the first time. So thank you for joining us. So the last two times we've been dealing with some topics that came out in the Shoshinge. We did about the Ichinen, or the one thought moment, the time that instant where we awaken to Amida's working or compassion, the sincere mind of Amida, and we gain the interesting heart, Shinjin. And then last time I delved a little bit into what we call Bonno, which is the Klesa, and it's our human defilements, human passions. So I'd like to go on today, and hopefully I'll be able to finish the section on the Pure Land Sutras. So this Shoshinge is broken up into, well, basically 3 parts. The first part, of course, is the profession of faith, the first 2 lines, in which Shinan professes his faith. And then there's the next section is on the actual Pure Land teachings, the sutras themselves. And so I'd like to finish that section today, hopefully. But as you know, with my pace and my going off tangent, we don't often go in a linear direction. But that, as I mentioned, that's fine too. And so what I'm hoping that we will be able to finish this portion. Next week, I would like to take a 1 week break. My aunt and cousin are coming from Japan for the week from Thursday. So I'd like to spend time with them. So there will not be a lecture next Tuesday, but we'll follow up the Tuesday following. Okay. So
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Are you working out of these? Is when you talk about the sutras?
Pardon me? Who's asking me the question? Oh, yeah. Yes. Thanks,
Dana.
Dan. Yeah. No, so what we're doing is what's called the Shoshinge. Shoshinge is a song that was written by Shinran Shonin, and it's in his. If you don't have the collected works of Shinran, do you? It's a big thick book. Okay, so it's in the collected works of Shinran, and it's so the canon of his work, Shinran Shonin, the most important piece of his work was what we call the true teaching, practice, and attainment of the Pure Land Way. And in there is a verse that we chant. In fact, last Sunday we chanted the English version of it, but it's the most important verse or song for Jodo Shinshu followers. In Japan, traditionally at the Honganji and all the temples, they would chant it every morning. And so this workshop or lecture series has been talking about the Shoshinge. So we started off with the history, or I introduced basically a little bit about the Shinran's major work, this true teaching, practice, and attainment of the Pure Land Way, and how it's broken down into 6 chapters. The first chapter is what we call the chapter on teachings, and basically that emphasizes the larger sutra. So that book that you're holding up, Dana, the larger sutra on Amida, it's emphasizing that in the first chapter. It tells us that is the true teaching. So then the second chapter is on a chapter on practice. And there we talk about the Namo Amida Butsu as being a practice, not our practice per se, but it was designated by all the Buddhas. So all the Buddhas praising Amida Buddha is mentioned in the second chapter on practice. And the third chapter is a chapter on Shinjin faith. And so where Shoshinge, the song that we've been studying, it connects the chapter on practice with the chapter on Shinjin faith. So it's at the end of the chapter on practice. Incidentally, if you wanted to, the whole collected works of Shinran is online. You can Google it. You just type in collected works of Shinran, and there's a group up in Alaska. I can't remember the name of the group. Was it White Lotus? Anyways, they uploaded the whole collected works of Shinran online. Initially, the Honganji they weren't too happy with the fact that they uploaded the whole thing, but now the Honganji has recognized it and they've accepted it. And so, if any of you wish to Google it up, you can Google up the collected works of Shinran, and the whole thing. You can actually see the whole thing. Okay. If you didn't want to buy a thick book. 2 books actually. But anyways, so that's what we've been studying, and this is the 13th session in that. So I apologize to Trish and Dana, but you've missed out quite a bit along the way. So I'm just going to continue on with today's session, and the passage comes from the Shoshinge. And it starts off with the light of compassion that grasps us, illuminates, and protects us always. The darkness of our ignorance is already broken through. Still, the clouds and mists of greed, desire, anger, and hatred cover as always the sky of true and real Shinjin. But though the light of the sun is veiled by clouds and mists, beneath the clouds and mists, there is brightness, not dark. I really like this analogy. Until I read this analogy, it didn't strike me the meaning behind this, but it's true. Even though because of my uh, greed, anger, hatred, ignorance, I often blinded and not being able to see the workings of the Buddha. But it's always shining on us, and it's just like the clouds on a cloudy day. Um, we still know that the sun is shining; it's still light underneath. So, in a similar sense, even though I'm filled with blind passions, um, I can feel or recognize the working of the Buddha. And Shinran points this out in the Tanisho, uh, which was written by Shinran Shonin's disciple Yu Yenbo. It was written a number of years after Shinran had passed away. There were disparages of how to understand Shinran's teachings amongst his followers, particularly in the Kanto area in the east. And one of Shinran's closest disciples, Yu Yenbo, wrote this record in Lament of Divergence. It's called in English, or Tanisho. And I've talked about Tanisho before. It's a literary classic in Japan. You'll find it in most bookstores or commentaries on this Tanisho. And it basically is a conversations between Shinran and Yu Yenbo, and Yu Yenbo's recollection of what their conversations were about. And it's broken down. There's 18 chapters to it, and the first 10 are considered the direct words of Shinran. And then the last part, Yu Yenbo is sort of reflecting on some of the erroneous views that are in existence. And he makes he said, well, I remember Shinran saying this. And so this is the Tanisho. And in chapter 9 of the Tanisho, this is a very famous chapter, Yu Yenbo approaches Shinran and says, although I say the Nembutsu, the feeling of dancing with joy is faint within me, and I have no thought of wanting to go to the Pure Land quickly. How should it be for a person of the Nembutsu? When I asked the master this, he answered, I too have this question, and the same thought occurs to you, Yu Yenbo. When I reflect deeply on it, by the very fact that I do not rejoice at what should fill me with such joy that I dance in the air and dance on the earth, I realize all the more that my birth is completely settled. What suppresses the heart that should rejoice and keeps one from rejoicing is the action of blind passions. Nevertheless, the Buddha, knowing this beforehand, called us foolish beings possessed of blind passions. Thus, becoming aware that the compassionate vow of other power is indeed for the sake of ourselves, who are such beings, we find it all the more trustworthy. Further, having no thought of wanting to go to the Pure Land quickly, we think forlornly that we may die even when we become slightly ill. This is the action of blind passions. It is hard for us to abandon this old home of pain, where we have been transmigrating for innumerable kalpas down to the present, and we feel no longing for the Pure Land of peace, where we have yet to be born. Truly, how powerful our blind passions are. But though we feel reluctant to part from this world, at the moment of our karmic bonds to the Saha world run out and helplessly we die, we shall go to that land. Amida pities, especially the person who has no thought of wanting to go to the Pure Land quickly. Reflecting on this, we feel the great vow of great compassion to be all the more trustworthy and realize that our birth is settled. If we had the feeling of dancing with joy and wishing to go to the Pure Land quickly, we might wonder if we weren't free of blind passions. Okay, so this is the passage. It's very interesting how Shinran answers Yu Yenbo. So in the Buddhist teachings, there's a philosophy that the Buddha taught according to the capacity of the listener. And also sometimes he taught with a thunderbolt, like a very impactful statement. But sometimes he also taught in a very gentle way. And this way of teaching, this passage refers to the latter. And because Yu Yimbo is coming with this great concern that, he's not feeling joy or he's reciting the Nembutsu. And I've heard from some of you as well. When you recite Namo Amida Butsu, sometimes you don't feel anything, or you can't feel that joy. And Shinran, he doesn't admonish Yu Yimbo. He says, "What, Yu Yimbo, you too? You have the same kind of concerns? I too have that exact same feeling." But then he goes on and he says, "And it's because I'm full of blind passions." And Amida Buddha recognized this, and therefore the Amida stated that we are in fact beings full of blind passions. And he says, because of that, the fact that so it's kind of a double negative. He says, because of the fact that I don't feel that joy, I'm not dancing with joy for what I should be dancing to, I realize this is all my blind passions, and that my attachment to these blind passions is indeed extremely strong. But because of that, I'm assured of birth, because Amida Buddha's working is especially for those who are unable to break free through their own merit. And so Shinan says this, and he then goes on and says that um, not wanting to go to Pure Land quickly. The moment we become slightly ill, we feel, oh, I'm going to die, and I want to live, right? And he says that, again, this is our attachment to what he calls this old home of pain. Sometimes we think about our daily life, and I'm not too bad yet, but I'm sure some of you have gotten up and your back aches, or um, I do myself recognize that when I get up, sometimes I'll say "yoisho," which is a Japanese word that there's no English translation for, and it just helps you as you're exerting yourself. So it's a very common phrase. I did look up the English translation, but it makes no sense. But it's something that people say when they're exerting themselves, especially the older you get. You hear people saying "yoisho, yoisho," and so uh, you know, th- even still, even though our bodies might be falling apart, we still want to maintain this life. We still want to um, and Shinan says that's because of our ego and our blind passions. And then he goes on to say something very interesting, because he says that it is hard for us to abandon this old home of pain where we have been transmigrating for innumerable kalpas down to the present. So it's said in the Buddhist teachings that we are in what we call this existence of saha or samsara, the existence of suffering. And there are 6 realms of suffering that we talk about. But it's said that until we encounter the compassion of the Buddha or the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, we continue to be in the cycle of samsara. And it's only when we encounter the Dharma that we come to something very, very rare and precious. And that is the gift of the Dharma. And when we do encounter that, we realize there's something much greater than this existence of suffering. And so I put in a passage here from the Dhammapada, which is a collection of sayings from the Buddha. And in there it says, the gift of the Dharma excels all gifts. The taste of the Dharma excels all tastes. The happiness of the Dharma excels all happiness. One who has eliminated craving overcomes all suffering. So it is said that the greatest gift that we could receive is the Dharma. And so you'll find, particularly in the Theravada school of Buddhism and other monastic schools of Buddhism, you'll find that, you know, the monks and nuns receive alms in order to exist. And the whole practice is that they would go out in the morning to receive alms. And in return of the alms, the offerings that they receive, they give the gift of the Dharma. And it's said that no offerings that anyone could make can compare to that gift of the Dharma. So it's seen to be the greatest gift. And this emphasis on listening or receiving the Dharma at this moment is
Did we leave you outside?
Oh no, I was just saying hi to the cat.
Oh.
oh, hello. Who's somebody who's talking? Okay. Anyways, so it's no more. It's most evident in what we call the homage and three treasures that we read regularly during our services. This homage and three treasures are Bandhana Tisarana in Pali. It is the most common chant that all Buddhists do together. So in Buddhism, we have many different denominations, many different schools, and we chant very different things. When I was out at the in Victoria with the other Buddhist groups, we all had the opportunity to bless the MLAs and the parliament, and every group chanted their own chants. In fact, maybe I might be able to share that. Can you just give me 2 seconds here? Let me, oops. I'm going to, oh, that's not what, see if I can bring some of that up. I don't know if this works well or not. Where's that? Okay. Well, that's not it. Wasn't it? Oh, no. Okay. Huh? Where? Oh, here we go. Okay. Hang on. So I'm going to share with you. Oh, where am I? I'm going to share with you. This is a Vietnamese chant. Okay, so hang on. Can you see that? Okay. And if I press this, hang on. Gotta move this up. Did you hear that? No, you can't hear that.
It's breaking
I
up.
know. I know what it is. Hang on. I have to just change one thing. Hang on. I have to put this on there. Okay, now you'll be able to hear it. Let me do this again. So this is a Vietnamese chant. Okay. Could you hear that? No, it doesn't come through. Doesn't come through.
It was still breaking up.
Okay, never mind. I won't do it. But anyways, there are all very different chants. However, the one thing that is common to all the different Buddhist groups is the recitation of either the Bandhana Tisarana, or in English we say the homage and three treasures. And so this is the most common chant, and it's usually done by at all different Buddhist gatherings. And when we do the Bandhana Tisarana, so when we do it, we have a melody behind it. But in the regular Pali, they don't. And I didn't write the Pali here, but you know how the Bandhana Tisarana goes. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And then they'll say, Buddham saranam gacchami, and Dhamman saranam gacchami, and Sangham saranam gacchami. And then they do it 3 times. So they'll say, Dutiyampi, Buddham saranam. Dutiyampi means for the second time. And then they'll do it for the third time. Tatiyampi. So they do it, the 3 treasures is read 3 times over. Okay. 3 is a very sacred number in Buddhism, representing the 3 treasures. So you'll find many practices are done with a repetition of 3 times. So when you're seeing a walking meditation, for instance, it's very common for them to circumambulate 3 times around um, the hall or the temple, and that's a very common thing that you'll see. So, anyways, in here, in this homage and 3 treasures, if you look at the beginning, the homage, it says here, hard it is to be born into human life. Now we are lifting it. Difficult it is to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we are hearing them. If we do not gain emancipation in the present life, we may not be free from sorrow in the ocean of births and deaths. Okay, so this is that idea of transmigration, ocean of births and deaths. You're going back over and over. And what the 3 treasures is saying is, wait a minute, you've encountered the Dharma now, right in this moment, this life. Don't waste it. How precious this is. You've encountered it. Let's try to make the most of it. This is our opportunity to be free from our ignorance. And so, in the end, at the bottom, it says here, even through myriads of kalpas, hard it is to hear such excellent, profound teachings. Now we are able to hear and receive them. Let us try to understand the Tathagata's teaching, right? So, as difficult it is to encounter the Dharma, we have encountered it. So let us try to understand these teachings left for us. I don't know if you've heard me give the analogy in the Buddhist teachings. There is an analogy of how rare it is to encounter the Dharma. One explanation they'll often use is it's like the blossoming of what they call the Udambara flower, and this flower blossoms only once in every so many 100 years, apparently. So to be there when it blossoms is a very rare occasion. Another example that's often used is there's a turtle swimming in a blind sea turtle swimming in the ocean, and it comes up for breath once every 100 years, and it comes up to the surface to take a breath, and it just so happens there's a driftwood floating on the ocean, and there's a hole in the middle of that driftwood. So the odds of that blind sea turtle coming up, poking its head out the surface, and it happens to go through that hole in the driftwood. That's how rare it is. Okay. I don't know who comes up with these uh, analogies, but they have really far-fetched imagination, I think, back then, for them to come up with that. But anyways, so the rarity of encountering the Dharma, and um, and yet here we are encountering it. Now this thing about transmigration, it's very interesting, and I'm going to share with you actually this idea of transmigrating for in the past till now is a very common idea in Buddhism. And in fact, there's a very popular Japanese story uh, written by Yoko Sano. And I'm going to actually read you a children's story right now. And it's called The Cat Who Lived a Million Lives, a story by Yoko Sano. And so there's the cat. And it says, okay, so it goes on. Let me just decrease. Okay, that there's a cat who had lived a million lives. He died a million times and was reborn a million times. He had a distinctive coat like a tiger. He was a very impressive cat. A million people had loved him as their own cat, and a million people had cried for him when he died. But this cat had never shed one drop of tears. Once he was king's cat. He didn't like the king. The king was at war all the time. He put the cat in a splendid cage and he took the cat to the wars. One day the cat was shot by a straying arrow. The king held the cat crying in the field of the battle. The king had no mood for the war anymore. He returned to the castle where he buried the cat in the garden. Once the cat was raised by a sailor. He didn't like the sea. The sailor had traveled around the world with the cat. One day the cat fell into the water from the ship. The cat couldn't swim and he drowned. As the sailors held the cat's wet body in his arms, he cried out loud. He buried the cat in a city park far away from the sea. Oh, oh no, hang on, sorry. Somebody's trying to get it. Okay. Once the cat was raised by a circus magician. He didn't like circus. The magician put the cat into a box every day, then cut the box in half. As he took the unharmed cat out of the box, the audience applauded. One day, the magician accidentally cut the cat in half. As the magician held the two pieces of the cat in both hands, he burst into tears. No one applauded. The cat was buried in the circus's backyard. Once the cat was raised by a thief. He didn't like the thief. The thief always took the cat with him. They walked in the streets in the nights. The thief walked quietly like a cat. The thief broke into homes with dogs and safes. While the dog barked at the cat, he took advantage to open the family safe. One day the cat was killed by a dog. The thief, holding the diamonds and the dead cat, walking in the dark street, cried. The cat was buried in the thief's small yard. Once the cat was raised by a lonely old woman. He didn't like the old lady. The old lady, holding the cat on her lap, looked out of a small window, sitting all day. The cat lay on the old lady's lap all day, sleeping and napping. Finally, the cat got older and older, then he died. The wrinkled old lady, holding the wrinkled old cat in her arms, cried all day. The cat was buried under the old tree in the yard. Once the cat was raised by a little girl. He didn't like the little girl. The little girl always carried the cat on her back. or held the cat too tightly when she slept. When the little girl cried, she cried over the cat's back. One day, the little girl carried the cat on her back again. A strap wrapped around the cat's neck accidentally. Oh, wait. A strap wrapped around the cat's neck accidentally and what? Accident must have happened. It must have choked it. And the cat was strangled to death. The little girl holding the limp cat cried all day. Finally, she buried the cat under a tree in the garden. However, the cat did not mind his own death so much. One time, the cat was not raised by anyone. He was a wild cat. For the first time, he was his own master. The cat liked himself this way the most. He was already a beautiful tabby cat. Now, of course, he became a very strong wild cat. All the girl cats wanted to marry him. Some brought him big fishes, some brought him the best mice to eat, some brought him precious gifts, and some were licking his hair. The cat just said, I died 1,000,000 times. Who can be my match? He still liked himself the most. There was a beautiful white cat. She didn't look at the cat. The cat walked up to the white cat and said, I died 1,000,000 times. The white cat simply replied, Is it? The cat was a little angry because he liked himself so much. The next day and the third day, the cat walked to the white cat saying, You haven't even lived one life to the end, right? The white cat still simply answered, Oh. Once the cat walked in front of the white cat. He did 3 somersaults in the air and said, I used to be a circus cat. The white cat still simply responded, So? I have lived 1,000,000. In the middle of the sentence, the cat changed to ask, Can I stay by your side? The white cat said, Okay. Since then, the cat stayed by the side of the white cat. Over time, the white cat gave birth to many cute kittens. The cat no longer said, I have lived 1,000,000 times. He liked the white cat and the kittens the most, more than he liked himself. Finally, all the kittens had grown up, left them one by one. These kittens have become very impressive wild cats, the cat said, satisfied. Yeah, the white cat purred softly. The white cat was more and more like an old lady. The cat had become more and more gentle. He also made a soft purr from his throat. He wanted to stay with the white cat together forever. One day, the white cat was lying on the side of the cat, motionless and quiet. The cat cried for the first time in his 1,000,000 lives. He cried from the morning to night, from evening to morning. He cried 1,000,000 times. Days and days passed. At 1 noon, the cat stopped crying. He was lying on the side of the white cat, quiet and motionless. The cat never reincarnated again. So this is it's actually quite a famous tale that's told, and it's talking about reincarnation. And finally, the cat, as long as we live an egocentric life, we will come back over and over again into this existence of suffering. And it's only when he found something that was more important than himself. And the analogy is that this is encountering the Dharma. When you encounter the Dharma, you find that which is more important than the self, and then you can be liberated from your suffering. Of course, Hollywood has its own version. I don't know how many of you have ever seen Groundhog Day. Have you ever watched Groundhog Day with Bill Murray, where he goes back and lives the same day over and over and over? And for the first so many times, he tries to take advantage of the situation. Well, first of all, he's scared, but then he learns to try to take advantage of the situation. but he still comes back over and over and over. And finally, he tries to win over this girl's love. And at first, he does it by, again, trying to scheme his way. But in the end, he realizes that the only way is to be a, a genuine individual. And that's when finally time starts moving forward, right? So this Groundhog's Day is often discussed amongst in Buddhism, that it is talking about this the same thing as the cat who lived a million lives, where the egocentricity brings you back to the same place over and over and over again. And it's only when we go beyond that, when we find something that is true and real, that we can go beyond that. So that's the Groundhog Day. Um, and So then going forward, the next set of lines, it says here, one immediate leaps crosswise, closing up. Oops, sorry. No, when one realizes Shinjin, seeing and revering the and attaining great joy, one immediately leaps crosswise, closing off the five evil courses. All foolish beings, whether good or evil, when they hear and entrust to Amida's universal vow, are praised by the Buddha as people of vast and excellent understanding. Such a person is called a pure white lotus. So again, Shinan says, and he mentioned this previously in the Shoshinge as well, that one thought moment of joy that it's talked about in the largest sutra. So that's when we realize this awakening that we have, we receive this shinjin, or the entrusting heart. And at that instant, um, one immediately leaps crosswise. So I mentioned also, remember about the example of the bamboo tree with an insect, a bug in the inside of it, and it has many different ways to get out. One is to go vertically, and it has to chew its way through each of the nodes as it goes up. And then another one is still going vertically, but it finds a hole in the nodes. So it's a little easier, but it's still going vertically. And then a third is that it chews a hole on the side um, and goes out the side. But even the fourth is that the hole exists already on the side, and it just immediately goes out. So what it's saying here is that when we awaken, or when we receive this Shinjin faith, or the entrusting heart, immediately we're in the grasp of the Buddha, and we transcend sideways the five evil courses. And the five evil courses referred to here are five of the six realms of suffering: hell, hungry ghosts, beasts, humans, and pseudo heavenly beings. Okay, and most often you'll find a sixth one, which is the fighting spirits, is also included. But these are all realms of suffering, and they're more a state of being than an actual place. All six realms are within each of us at any single time. So there are people in this earth who are living lives, existence of hell right now. There are those who are living an existence of hungry ghosts. Hungry ghosts are beings who are there because of their vices, of their greed, and they're always hungry because even though they have food in front of them, it turns into flames as they try to bring it to their mouth. So hence the name hungry ghosts. Beasts, these are individuals who have no conscience. They only live on instinct alone. And then you have humans, which is our realm, still suffering. But it is said that the humans, the one unique feature about humans is that we are able to listen to the Dharma, and we are able to reflect, where others do not have that. And then the pseudo heavenly realm, this is a realm of materialism. So although they are they're well off materialistically, in the end they encounter great loneliness and pass away in a very lonely existence. But anyways, it's said when we receive or the interesting heart, at that instant are we cross over sideways, okay, through the working of the Buddha. And then he says, all foolish beings, whether good or evil. So, Shinra, once you receive the Shinjin, there's no difference between good person or evil person. He calls them all basically foolish beings. So we're all foolish. It's all relative. Um, in fact, well, this morning I had an incident. I go golfing with my uncle, and we were out on the golf course this morning, and the group in front of us, we thought they were very slow. So one of the golfers I was with told me the marshal was coming by, so he told me, "Tell the marshal the group in front is slow." So I went to the marshal. I said, "Excuse me, can you ask the people in front to hurry up because they're slow?" And the marshal looked at me and said, "They're not slow. Everybody else is fast. They're doing fine." And it really made me. I kind of got embarrassed by that, but here I thought, well, we thought they're slow, but the marshal said, uh, "Time is relative," he said, and he said those people are fine up there. So we were sort of put in our place that you see, we think, oh, we're good, they're bad, they're slow, we're doing fine. But in fact, the marshal told us, no, everybody else is too much in a hurry. Those people are actually right on time, he said. So uh, uh, this good and evil is all a relative thing. We're all foolish, according in the eyes of the Buddha. Okay. Um, so, but when you hear it and trust the to the primal vow, the Buddha, this is referring to Shakyamuni Buddha, praised the people of vast and excellent, praised them as people of vast and excellent understanding, and he called them pure white lotus. So this pure white lotus actually in Sanskrit is pundarike, or fundarike or pundarike. And its first usage in Chinese was by the fifth of our seven patriarchs, Shantou or Zendo Daishi in China. In his commentary on the Contemplation Sutra, he used this. It's what we call transliteration. Transliteration is where they put characters to the sound in Sanskrit. So Namo Amida Butsu is actually a transliteration. Namo Amida Butsu, or in Chinese they'll say Namo Amitabha, and that is just the sound of that. Uh, in Pali, it would be Namo Amita. Wait, Namo Amita. Namo Amitayus or Namo Amitabha, which is Buddha of infinite light or infinite life. But so this Pundarika is the Chinese characters that have that sound. But then he actually translates it and gives it 5 different Chinese names. And one of the names he uses is Myo Koni. Okay, Myo Koni. And in our Jodo Shinshu teachings, there have been we call them wondrously pious individuals. In the 1800s, there was a listing of a number of very devout and pious Jodo Shinshu followers, and they were given this title, Myo Konin. But Myo Konin comes from this Pundarika, which is a white lotus. So why the white lotus is used in Buddhism as exemplifying purity, and you've heard this probably before, is the fact that the lotus itself, lotus flowers, if you don't know the how they grow, they don't grow in clear running water. They grow in very murky and muddy water. Okay, and some lotus flowers actually bloom under the surface. Some will bloom on the surface, and some will bloom above the surface. And what they're saying is, in the Buddhist teachings, the white lotus that blooms above the surface is coming out of this murky water, and that represents the world of suffering. Out of the world of suffering comes the beautiful enlightenment of the Buddha. What it also signifies is that there's the flip side of the same coin. Without the suffering, there was no need for the Buddha. But because there is suffering, the Buddha comes into this world. And so those individuals are, in our case, the wondrously pious Nembutsu followers are known as Myokonin or Pundarika. Pundarika in this Shoshinge, Pundarike, different pronunciations, but pure white lotus. So those who have received this entrusting heart are seen as this beautiful flower out of this murky water or the suffering. Okay. And finally, the Nembutsu that embodies Amita's primal vow for evil sentient beings of wrong views and arrogance is hard to accept in Shinjin. This most difficult of difficulties, nothing surpasses. So Shinran here acknowledges that that it isn't extremely difficult for us to truly let go, because we are always self-calculating, we are self-centered. But to truly let go and trust the Buddha, Shinran says it's the most difficult of difficulties. And throughout his life, Shinran has tried number of times. He has not tested, but there are incidents that happen that reminds himself of his human frailties, and but yet still through all that, he realizes that the working of Amida Buddha is constantly working upon us. So this concludes the section on the teaching parts. So 2 weeks from now, I will introduce what we call the 7 patriarchs. I did hand out the sheet before. Let's see. Where's that? At the very beginning, one of the first beginning lectures, I handed out this one. You probably have this, right? So we'll be going through these 7 patriarchs now, and this is the second part of the Shoshinge, is talking about each of their unique contributions to the Pure Land Scroll, their commentaries, etc. Okay. Are there any questions, or let me just stop sharing. Okay. And I will take off. Removes. So anybody have any comments or questions, or
I really liked the story.
of the cat?
Yeah, I've never heard that before. It was really good.
I will actually send you a copy of it.
Okay.
You can actually get it online as well, but I'll send everybody the PDF of it. Yeah, it's a quite an interesting story. Um, quite graphic at points, but the kids actually like it quite a bit because of the that graphic nature to it, you know.
So I was really, this is Dana. So I was really surprised because I realized I had that book. I bought it a long time ago at a used bookstore and I had read it to my son. And it took me a while to get what the point of that was. So it's kind of nice that you talked about it.
Uh, well, we had that book too, but when my son moved out, he took it with him, so I don't have it anymore. um, any other questions or comments or Trish, were you able to follow along okay?
Yeah, thank you. It was actually quite interesting.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I know it's hard to join in something that has been going on for a while and you're new to it, so but thank you.
Sensei, it's Rose here.
Yes.
Yeah, may I just comment on Sunday, your Dharma talk to all of us, and you were talking about the fungi and the fungus. Well, there's a wonderful book. It's written a number of years ago now. It's titled The Hidden Life of Trees. Some of you may know it. And there's another one that's an illustrated one. But here's what's fascinating. Everything you discussed. In the early 90s, there's a doctoral, a PhD professor at UBC. Her name is Dr. Susanna Simard. And she was the person who actually, her team has done all of the research in the 90s. And this fellow, his name is Peter Wolven. He's a German forester. And if you want to read something absolutely beautiful and see the most amazing pictures of the fungi that are in our forests. And the wonderful thing is that every tree species has specific fungi that are there, but they're all connected. And this Dr. Simard tells that it is the wood wide web. And so it's fascinating. So if you are thinking to yourself, well, I would really love to know more about what Sensei said about the connectedness of everything. Here's a picture here of, you probably can't see it, of the fungus that's growing, but I love the story again that you shared with us about Mitsukai and his treasure map.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it fabulous to know that the research is being done still through the forestry department at UBC, the ecology. She's a fabulous speaker as well. So lovely things to know about what happens when a tree is cut down in the forest, that the web underneath will even try to keep the stump alive. And if you take away all the trees like they do in clear cutting, you're killing the mother trees. And not just the Douglas fir looking after Douglas firs. Oh no, the mother looks after all the trees in the forest, whether it's birch or whatever it is. So it's fascinating. So thank you so much, Sensei, because everything we are hearing and what we've heard tonight is all part of that connectedness, and it's beautiful story. So now we've got Kat. My cat is lying in the chair. I don't know which life she's on, but it's quite fascinating. No, quite fascinating anyway. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to share a story with you. It happened to me today. We have one cat that's very mischievous, and he will get after us if we don't heed his ways. And one of the things that he likes to do is wake us up in the middle of the night to feed him. And if we don't, he will meow and he'll actually bang at our door until we open it up and actually feed him. So last night, because it gets quite annoying actually, if we leave our door open, he'll come into our room. First of all, he'll come and start biting our hair, And if we don't listen to him then, he goes on to our nightstand and he starts knocking everything off the nightstand until he gets his way. So because that's very annoying, we will close our bedroom door and he would meow and meow and bang on our door. And so today, and I'm certain the cat did this on purpose. Um, my daughter said the cats actually have what they call spite poo. They will poo in places where they're not supposed to. So I come home this afternoon and I open the front door and the cat had pooed right up near the front door. So the moment I open the door, of course, there's poo all over the door. So anyways, talking about cats and their minds, very interesting though. Sorry, maybe I should have shared that with you. I didn't. Need to share. Anyone else want to share a story?